Well, hi everyone. My name is Linda. If you haven't met me, I'm here for 2 months. So I'm here 1 month, and I've been working on something that is not so technical, I would say, but it's still important to test our vehicles, and that's the creation of simulation environments. So we're gonna talk today about what's the motivation behind doing this, the work pipeline that I've been using that I found that is the most efficient. And then one example that I've been working on, that is the Nagoya University campus, and some work that's still left to do regarding this. So first, why do we need to create environments, different environments in simulation? We really need to check the performance of our agents in specific real places, or like in specific places that have the complexity of real world resembling layouts or scenarios. And also something important is to be able to transfer the results that we have in simulation into real life. So that's like the ideal situation that you test in a simulation environment that really resembles exactly how the real life situation would be. What are the problems for this? There are a lot of problems. First, an easy problem, we need 3D modeling skills. Prototyping, fine detailing is really time consuming, and then once that you have a 3D model of an environment, there's a big gap between having this and then inserting this into a driving simulator. Why? Because we need to define the drivable area, we need to generate on-road waypoints, we need to provide GPS information, localization information, we want to create semantic tags, etc. We want to have some characteristics added to this 3D model before inserting it into a 3D simulator, into a driving simulator. So what's the work pipeline that I've been using that has worked for me, and hopefully it can work for you and you can create your own as well? So the first thing that we need to do this is to get GIS information, and that means the aerial information from the environment that we want to create. So that can be aerial imagery, those are like pictures taken from the sky. We want point cloud data, or we want vector map data. And then from this information, we have two routes. The one is that we can use a 3D tool. In this case, I have used Blender, and that is for building modeling and for building customization. And then we can insert both the results from the GIS data and Blender into RoadRunner. RoadRunner is a program we're going to see in a bit. It is not open source, unfortunately, but it's right now something that works well, at least with Carla. And that can also work well with other driving simulators like AirSim or some Unity-based driving simulators. What are the advantages that RoadRunner provides for us? It provides the road network generation, it allows to do props placements like traffic lights, traffic signals, and it allows to export the necessary files to import this environment into our driving simulator. Then after RoadRunner, we're going to use the Carla project. In this case, we're going to use first the version built from source. So usually for testing, you don't need to use the version of Carla built from source. But in this case, when we want to create environments, we really need this version. So it's in this version where we're going to import the map created in RoadRunner, and we're going to generate the map and the routes, waypoints, vehicles, spanner. That's going to be handled automatically. And then from this version built from source, we can create a Carla distribution where we can have our map added. So this is kind of the work pipeline that we should follow if we want to create an environment. So let's start with the GIS data. So first, we really need a map reference if we want to create a real resembling environment. And the map reference is important because this will center the origin of our layout, and will also provide access to the GPS information. It's also a template for doing road design and to do building creation. One thing that is important if we want to work within this pipeline is that this data must have a georeference. If it doesn't have a georeference, it will probably not work very well, but we're going to see why later. So we have here like three main types. I've used these three before. We have point cloud, the point cloud is very accurate. The problem is that if we want to use this as a template, and if it doesn't have a georeference and we have several files, then it's a very lengthy process just to try to accommodate the georeference so that it can be imported. So, okay, for now I haven't been using it. This would be ideal to use. Then we have the aerial imagery. Aerial imagery is very good, works very well. The problem is that there are a lot of resources for US environments that I have used before. So I haven't found for Japan, I don't know where they are, maybe there are, but maybe not open source. So yeah, I haven't used this in this occasion. So for this work, I've used vector data. In this case, I've used OpenStreetMap data. Now, even though it may not be as accurate, it is easier to use as a template, it's faster. And then there are some tools to correct the errors in the positions. I haven't checked them yet fully, but there are some tools that exist to do this. So, what would we do here with the GIS data? We go to OpenStreetMap and then we just export the area of interest that we want to design. And we just export it as an OSM file. And then we have Blender. I'm gonna skip through these slides very fast because they are very in detail, so they are just in case you actually want to do something with this. But well, I've used Blender. This is a 3D open source software, 3D modeling software. And I've used this to create the 3D buildings that are then gonna be imported in RoadRunner. And they are very useful for the creation of urban layouts. If you want to recreate something that is in the country, really you wouldn't need this, but for urban layouts, this would be very useful. What's the thing? We can also create the building directly in Unreal Engine once that you imported your map into the Carla project built from source. The problem is that in that case, we wouldn't have the reference to create the buildings. So in order to try to keep the buildings as close as we want to the real thing, then we can use this way. So there are two options to create buildings in Blender. The one is called OSM to World tool, and the other is an OSM Blender add-on for Blender. So what do these tools allow us? They allow us to take the OpenStreetMap information, and then they translate this information into roads and buildings and 3D buildings, an object in form of an object file, and then you can use that object file in Blender, and then you can modify it and export it as you want. So in my case, I've used the OSM Blender add-on. This allows, this has some advantages over the other one, but still, this is a very useful tool as well. So this is what we get after using the OpenStreetMap add-on in Blender. So there are some details that really I won't go too much into detail, but this is after importing the information from the using the OSM add-on. This is the screen that you get after importing your add-on into Blender, and it's really very simple to use. You just have to select the area. When you press this select, then a window with OpenStreetMap opens. Then you just select the area of interest, and then you just check here what are the objects that you wanna import. So in my case, I was only importing the buildings, but you can also import water objects, forest, vegetation, roads and paths. It won't be useful for me, but you can do this. You can also set the height of the buildings because they are imported as blocks. Then you can select the height of them and then just import. And then you get something like this, and you can then modify this. Then you see it's like kind of the aerial view of the campus. Kind of. This is the Toyota Auditorium, and this is our building. So then we can modify them to kind of resemble more the real environment. So here we have just some shortcuts for Blender and some edition tips. It's not very difficult to use Blender, but if you don't have a lot of experience using 3D modeling software, this can be useful. These are just some shortcuts and some tips on how to add the textures and how to edit the buildings in Blender. So in case you want to check this, I'm going to share this with you after this and you can go through it. Editing the buildings is not very difficult. It's only a bit of time consuming depending on the size of the environment that you want to create. And yeah, so we create some buildings. We want to remove also buildings that we don't want to be as part of our layout. So we follow this information here. It's not very hard, it's actually very simple, but I just wanted to put this into detail. And then at the end, when you have finished creating the buildings and adding the textures and everything, you should get something like this. So I wanted to create this because in this way I can import them to my map and this resembles the real layout of the buildings. I could also modify the heights of the buildings and could modify the textures. In Blender you cannot directly see the textures here, but when they are exported then you can see them. So now we have our map data and we have our buildings data. So now we're gonna go into RoadRunner. So the disadvantage of RoadRunner, of course, it's not open source, so it can only be used for these non-commercial and academic purposes. We have an academic license right now. The license administrator is Professor Alex. If you want to check the software out and so on, then you can ask him and then he can provide you the license. It can be used only one computer at a time. It's relatively easy to use. And yeah, so to create a new project, once that we open the program, like any other program, we just create a new project. And inside the projects, we have different scenes. So each new scene is a new environment. And this is the layout, the window of RoadRunner. In this case, I have imported this purple map that you see here is the OpenStreetMap. And here are the buildings that I created in Blender. And in this case, the map worked as a layout for my path creation. Then we have here tools for path creation. So after a couple hours of playing with them, then you get very good at it. It's very intuitive. This is the main window. Here we have tools for importing. We can import here the point cloud data, here the vector data. With this we modify the origin of the world. And with this tool here we can preview the OpenDrive file. We can preview how the directions of the road are set, and we can also modify them. These tools over here are to add props. In the case of props, we can add buildings, we can add the traffic lights, we can add post signs, we can add traffic signs, etc. So we use them here. We modify them here, and then here we have the library browser. The library browser provides all the road styles that we can use, all the some props that are provided directly by RoadRunner, and then we can also add our own customized props here and just import them into our project.
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
It seems there is some building is a RoadRunner viewer. I use RoadRunner, but I don't know how to create. Yeah, but I could not find how to create building.
Oh yeah. Actually, in RoadRunner we cannot create the buildings. It's exclusively for the roads, and that's why I used Blender, which is a 3D modeling software.
Blender export map and import them. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I see.
Yeah, I export this as an object file, and then I just copy this file into the library browser of RoadRunner, and then I can just import it. The thing is that since I created my buildings with the same OpenStreetMap that is here, then they have the same reference point. So they are one on top of each other, then we don't have reference problems.
I want to know. Yeah, I go back to my company. I want to do the same thing. So can you give the slide to me?
Yeah. I'm gonna share these slides. I have them. I'm just gonna share them in the Slack.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
By the way, so TF4 by the RoadRunner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very good too. Yeah. Now we are trial. We are trial state, but I will buy RoadRunner soon.
Oh, that's great then.
It's
has a
very good tool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good. Yeah, actually I tried several things with the buildings because that's a problem that we have. So I found that using Blender to export them and then having the same reference map for both.
Yeah, it's very helpful information for us.
Yeah. This is then the screen of RoadRunner. We're going to import the things that we create here in the library browser. So some basic things that we need to know about RoadRunner, it allows us to import OpenDirect files. So if you have one OpenDirect file, you can use it also as a template to create your roads. And then you can export to all these type of files. So in our case, it's very useful to export for Carla. But you can also export it to BTD. I don't know if you've used it. It's a driving simulator created by a company named Virus from Germany, but it's not open source, but it's also very complete. And then we can also export to Unity and Unreal, and we have some other 3D options here for exporting. Then these are the kind of assets that we can use in RoadRunner. So let's say that, for example, you created something in Autodesk, a 3D model, and you want to import it. Then these are the kind of formats that RoadRunner supports. So these are the ones that you can add to your library browser. In my case, I'm using this 3D model, like a .object file, and then a vector data.osm file. How do we add these external assets to RoadRunner? We're just gonna copy them. We can create here new folders, and then we can just copy them, or we can drag them from wherever they are located. This is a graphical interface. So in this case, I created this folder buildings, and then I copy the buildings that I created in Blender with all the textures that I created and also the map to import. So I'm going to use all of this into RoadRunner. Important things, we have to import the map first. The map has to be the first thing that you import into RoadRunner because it creates the reference of your map. It creates the origin of your map. So it's very important that this is the first thing that is imported into your project. And here there are some tips. If you cannot see, when you import your map, it appears very small, then you have to extend it here. Just some tips to do that. And then if you want to import your LiDAR files, what you want to do is that you copy all your point cloud files to the library browser, you select all of them, and you drag them to the main building. Then you get something like this. This is also the LiDAR files from the Nagoya University campus. The problem is, what I was explaining before, is that if we don't have a georeference for the point clouds, then we have to add them manually. And when you add them manually, it's a lengthy process because you can do this only once at a time. And once that you import this, it cannot be moved. So if you created this with a wrong origin reference, then you have to start all over. At least for now. I don't know if they will change.
Sorry, I have a question. When you say you need georeference for the point cloud, you need for each point the GPS?
Yeah, there is. I think that there is some additional information within each of the point cloud files that is showing this georeference, because Professor Alex explained me that these maps have an additional TF file that was providing the georeference, but I couldn't use it here. It had to be somewhat embedded.
Yeah, because I can, for the ISON created maps, we have we can convert using Proj. There is a library which can convert from from GPS to Cartesian, which is the coordinates that is used for the PCD file. So there is one-to-one conversion between GPS and the PCD.
So in this case, you could like regenerate the
For
point
each
cloud maps.
Yeah.
Oh, so we could try that. Yeah, because I'm not very sure about how it would work.
I think it's like it's only, I think the file that you referring is only the origin of the scan, right?
Yeah, we have, or if you have one point, we can convert. It's
Yeah.
one function you convert from, because we know this is in sector 7 in Japan, and if you pass this information to the Proj library,
Just
it give you the transformation.
one tier from.
Yeah, maybe we could try that. Yeah, because right now it looks very nice, but it's not very useful to use as a template.
I think RoadRunner has a feature. I think RoadRunner has a feature to import other file format, so the file format includes all point cloud with single point cloud with how can I say geographical information. And so I think it we should write converter of multiple PCD file, multiple PCD file and tf.launch and convert it into a single file format.
Yeah, if
and
we-
I think it will work.
What's the
That
format?
should work. Yeah,
So
this
it
has-
Custom format for.
No. It's not a custom format.
like
Yeah,
these
it's a
last
default
files, because I've seen that
Yeah,
these
yeah,
last
this one,
files
this one,
they
this
have
one. Yeah.
information.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you tried to eyeball the origin of the imaging PCDs?
I had to set it by hand.
Yeah.
So
If
I
you
did
try
it-
to eyeball it to overlay over the OSMs.
Yeah, the thing is that it doesn't work because the center of the OSM file
It's different
is
numbers,
different.
but you know,
Yeah, and it doesn't allow me to do that. So because I already the PCD files are like a number of them, so I manually added a transformation. But then when I wanted to import it into the same window, it said that they had different origin references.
it's complaint if there's a
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wouldn't add it if it's not close to the origin.
Yeah.
So did you try, so first if you import the OpenStreetMap first, right? And then you will have this coordinate, the origin.
just to say
And yeah, and then like
Yeah.
use that origin to, you know.
and then
Yeah.
eyeball.
I tried to do that,
No,
and
you cannot do that.
it didn't work very
No, no, no.
well. A ver. I think I can try again. I can try. Yeah, I think that I tried the other way around.
And
Yeah,
you say
and
if
then-
you use that value and directly paste it, but it will maybe end up somewhere else.
Yeah,
But
I think-
close, but then you can change that number
Yeah.
during maybe if it's good enough. Then you can eyeball it.
Yeah, or maybe if all the PCD files would to be compiled into just one file. Yeah, because right now there are multiple,
Yeah.
so you import them and they are like blocks and you are building something.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to try both. Like one, as you say, first importing the OSM and then trying to import them and adjust the reference. But of course, the reference is a bit different because we have elevation.
Yeah.
So it's also not 100%. But yeah, still there are a lot of things that we can try here to make it more realistic. But yeah, this is the way if you want to import a point cloud map. Then to place the building template that we created in Blender. So what I did is that I just copied the object file, the material file, and all the assets. The assets are all the texture files, the pictures, from the export that we made in Blender to the RoadRunner library browser. And then what we have to do is we just drag the object file to the main building, to the main window, and we just align the center of this with the center of the map. They have the same center because they were created the same way, so there won't be any problem with this. here you can see that, well, it's not very clear, but all the buildings are, they match what was provided by the OSM file. Then when we have this is kind of the lengthy part, but we haven't done anything yet. We just have building, we just have a map. So then we have to create the roads. That's the most important part of this. So we have the building, we have a template for creating the roads. So right now we need to use all the tools that RoadRunner provides to create the roads. It's not so bad to learn, just takes a bit. And yeah, the official documentation, at least for this part, is very good. So you just have to follow those steps. And once that you are happy with your implementation, you can check this button here. This is the Open Drive preview, the preview tool. And here you can check that actually all your roads have direction and that they have been correctly identified, because that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. And so what is the difference between red and green color? So they just different.
Oh, they are different directions. The one is
okay.
forward and the other is
Yeah.
backwards.
Okay.
And here there are traffic lights, and why the exported OpenDrive file cannot recognize that?
This is I don't know why they are still they
Is it
this tool
like
doesn't mean traffic
light?
lights.
Is it
This is
supported
for
in
some
all
prop
file format? It's not,
tool.
right?
The thing
It
is that the
included, but
logic is not
from
exported
here,
to Carla.
yeah.
You have to regenerate it in Carla, something like that. Yeah, this doesn't work very well yet. They say that in the future, but so far it doesn't work. And so if you place the traffic lights, it won't necessarily work when you export it to Carla. It's not cooked, the signals.
And how about others, like the pedestrian crossing line thing? Is this work in Carla?
Well, visually it will work,
Mm.
but
I
it
think
won't
it's
be
only
in the
like
open
this,
drive
yeah.
file. Yeah, so once that we're done, then we export to Carla, and exporting to Carla you get three files, an FBX file, and this is the 3D model and its assets, the XML files with some road definitions, and the open drive file. And then we go to the Carla project. We go to the Carla project that was built from source. This setup was done using Carla 096 built from source and Unreal Engine version 4.22. If you use the latest, you won't have any problem, but if you use the previous version, the Carla 0.9.5, you will likely get a problem, because Carla 0.9.5 from source was updated to Unreal Engine 4.22, but the distribution build was still built with 4.21. So just use the latest, and then you won't have any problem. So then we have to install the RoadRunner plugins in Carla so that it can import correctly what we just created. So we just copy the RoadRunner plugins from the Vector 0, the RoadRunner installation folder, to our project, and then we have to rebuild our project, just using this command here. Then we just go to the Carla directory, we open a terminal, and we run make launch. And then it will rebuild the whole thing. Once that you open it, it will say that it is missing some modules. Maybe it will say, maybe not. And you just say yes, and you can see, when you go to edit plugins, you can see that those plugins are already in your Carla project, and then everything will work properly. Then we have, this is a screen of the Carla project. This is Unreal Engine, the screen of Unreal Engine. This is when I imported the map. Here you can see these red dots are the generated routes that were created on top of our the generated paths. So how do we do to import them? We just go to the content browser in Unreal Engine. It's normally the tab at the bottom. We go to content, Carla maps, and then we create a new folder with the name of our map. It's important to maintain the same name of the map, because otherwise we can get some conflicts. We just create a new folder with the name, and then we select the import button here in the bottom as well, and we browse to the exported files from RoadRunner, and we select our FBX file and all the image files. And so we import everything into this new folder. When we agree to import them, then the plugins will take care of importing the OpenDrive file and the XML file. They will take care of everything. And then we will find our created map in Content Carla Exported Maps. And here, you can see Content Carla Exported Maps. And here I have the map that I just generated. Here is NU new. This is the map that I created. Then you just save all. Sometimes it doesn't save if you don't press here save all. So just make sure that you save everything, and that's it. So you can test your map here. In a real engine you have a play button, so you can just play there and then just connect a client. But it will be very slow because the FPS from this Carla server is like 3, 2, 1 FPS. This is very slow. So this is not useful for testing. So what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna create a Carla distribution build. Ideally what we want to do is to package this map and to import it into our distribution build, but that doesn't always work. So we're gonna create our own distribution build. This is pretty simple as well. We go with the project open, we select file, package project, packaging settings, and we select a couple options. We uncheck this option, use pack file, and then there's an option called list of maps to include in a distribution build. So you just select all the maps that you created that you want in this distribution build. Then you just open a terminal in the Carla directory and you write make package. And then you will have a compiled version that has all the maps that you have created, and it's in home Carla, it's in your Carla installation folder in the dist folder. And yeah, once that you do that, then you have like a distribution build that has your map, and then you can use it for testing. The other option is to create only the map export, which doesn't always work, but there's also this possibility. So you just go to the root of the Carla project and you run make export maps, and here you put rx file and here you put your map name. So it will create like a cooked version of your map as a tar file like this. So once that you get this tar file, what you do is that you copy it into the import folder in your distribution build, in the one that you have and it's already working. So you have this, and then you just open a terminal in the Carla folder and run this script, import assets.sh, and then it will import this map, similar as what Carla has done with Tom 6 and 7 in the past releases.
Did you get this make export map to work with 0.9.6?
No, it worked with the
0.9.5.
0.9.5.
Okay.
So that's why if it works, great. If not, there's something still weird with the latest version.
Yeah.
In the 0.9.5 it worked.
Make script.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. In the 0.9.5 it worked, but in the 0.9.6 it didn't work. But still, this is the procedure that they provide. So, well, I did this for the 0.9.5, and it didn't work right away. But I had to do an additional process. So, still, usually the cooked map is not enough. So, in any case, you had to run make package, as we saw before. So, we need to. So, additionally, from creating this, we have to do this as well. And after you do this part in the distribution build, then you have to copy the RoadRunner importer from your distribution build that you created there. You have to copy that to your own distribution build in the plugins folder. Because this RoadRunner imported isn't imported, and you need it so that it can work. So if you try to run this, but if you get the fail to generate map message, then it means that it's still needing some assets, or that the OpenDrive file wasn't copied. In the case that the OpenDrive file wasn't copied, then you have to copy it manually from from the distribution build that you created to your distribution build. So it's quite a process, but if you do that, then it can work, but it doesn't necessarily work. So if you get a message indicating a problem with RoadRunner runtime, the problem also corresponds to the traffic lights that aren't working right now. So the only workaround for this is to go into your distribution folder, to the RoadRunner importer, and you literally have to modify this file and to remove the RoadRunner runtime and save. The only thing that will be affected are the traffic lights. If you're not using them, it's the same thing. So yeah, you just remove them and then you save, and then it should work. So yeah, this last part, so creating only the map export, is a process that won't necessarily succeed. So for now, I would recommend just to create a Carla distribution build that packages everything in one. And this works, for now it's been working fine. So let's see what I've done so far. This is a flat version of the Nagoya University campus. As you can see, here I have the buildings that I created in Blender. They are not like the fanciest buildings, but it serves the purpose. So here are the textures that I added and everything, and the roads that I created around the campus.
The texture. How did you add the texture? Manually in Blender?
In Blender, yeah, I had to do it manually. There must be some way of doing it, but I'm not very experienced with Blender. But yeah, wasn't too bad. But yeah, you just have to add them. You create the paths. Here is in RoadRunner, like a perspective version. Then you export this and you import this into the Carla project, and this is what I get.
If you export the OpenDrive file, the waypoint will generate automatically. The red point here.
Yeah, there is actually a tool here in Unreal Engine that allows you to generate that generates all the waypoints.
So this is the tool for Unreal Engine, not for RoadRunner, right?
Yeah, this is in Unreal Engine, that all of those. From RoadRunner, you get the OpenDrive file that contains the road definition, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then to actually generate the waypoints and to also generate the spawn points, so where you can spawn your vehicles, that is all generated here in Unreal Engine, in the Carla project. Yeah, so these red are all those waypoints that are generated here. So the Carla project and the RoadRunner plugins, they all take care of generating the maps, generating all this information.
Even without a RoadRunner, the original Unreal Engine can also generate, right?
I mean, you have to do it almost manually. You can. Here in the modes tab of Unreal Engine, here it says search classes. So here you look for OpenDrive actor and for spawner actor. Here you have some actors, and then you just drag them to your map, to the map that you created, and then you can generate the maps and all of that. It's not very straightforward though, if you're just creating your own 3D, but yeah, it's possible. For simple environments, this would be the easiest way for all. So well, after importing it here and after making the distribution build and after running the Carla server, we get something like this. Kind of the view, one view, not finished yet, but one view, how it looks. I just used two kind of textures, so, but yeah. And then we can connect a client. And this is, for example, the manual control. This looks nice, and then we can see also like the GPS, everything. We get all this information. And I didn't add it, but we can also get like all the embedded tools from Carla, like for example the depth map or the semantic segmentation camera. They all work fine. So that's good. You save a lot of time. Then you can just use whatever you already have in this new environment. So that is, that's pretty much it. So there are still some things to do, of course. We still need to check the width and the lengths of the roads because they are probably not that accurate. customize the roads, the markings, the buildings. So something that is more like fine tuning doing, but that's that.
Do you set the measure like by hand, like the 2.8 meters, for example?
You can do that. Yeah, I predefine them because I just measured in Google Maps and then I predefine them like the widths. But still, we need to check.
Okay. Are you sure Google Maps are accurate? We can take a measure and go outside and.
Yeah, but I didn't do that yet. But we
I
can.
mean,
That's not hard
be
to.
like
That's not hard to
perfectly-
modify after having the original.
You can measure it in part time as well, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, but is point cloud is like it's not clear. Sometimes if you are not have the color information, intensity information,
Yeah.
some
well,
areas are not clear. So
yeah, basically
the best thing is go.
No measuring
I'm
tape.
lazy.
Yeah, but still that's not so bad. Like to modify once that you have it in, like you have the template, it's not hard to modify. Then we also have to, well, I checked this. This is fine. The semantic segmentation in a previous version that I tested some months ago, it didn't work very well, but now it's working fine. So don't worry. We also have to check the GPS coordinates because here we see that we get the GPS coordinates. But I'm not sure, I don't think that they are very accurate. So because it says southwest here in this direction. So it's still something that I need to check.
Yeah, the problem with OSM actually is it's inaccurate. There is from I calculated once and open like with the actual GPS, very good GPS, compare Google Maps and OSM and the actual GPS. There is 2 to 3 meters error between the three of them. So not only the distance, also the angle has some issues, orientation. So that's why I'm not encouraged to use the OpenStreetMap as a reference.
Yeah, well, we will need to check that and to see how impactful that would be into what we're doing. Because if anyway we can find like the transformation from what we have right now and from the real thing, then it wouldn't be such a big of a deal, right?
Yeah, what I did is I get like 3 points with the really expensive GPS device, and I recalculated the points in the OSM map according to that, like get the error and then reflect the error to the all points.
I think maybe we could implement this here. I mean, like for actual use. Yeah, but it's still doable. Not so bad, I think. And then well, I would also like to have this as just as a package that you can import into your distribution build, not as it is right now. That would be the ideal situation because in that case we can use this for distribute, so that several people can use this. And then customization of streets and intersections. There's still some work to do there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And the customization of buildings, of course. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I hope that if you want to use this or something, then you can use this as a simple reference, kind of simple reference.
So, did you try using the ROS bridge? Like
No.
with a custom map?
I haven't.
I tried, but it crashed. You know, it works fine with the default maps, but then with the new map, the custom map, it crashed. Like I don't know what's
No
wrong.
idea then.
Yeah.
No idea then. I haven't tried.
Yeah, I feel the loss bridge of the Carla is too unstable. So
Yeah.
So I want to ask them to please it stable. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I really haven't tried. But yeah, that would be very important. Like interesting to try. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for your attention. I will share the slides in the Slack as well.
Thank you.